Welcome to the launch of Ranger Reels, a podcast that promises to ignite inspiration and celebrate the remarkable journeys of our alumni here at Hamilton Local Schools. Through Ranger Reels, we aim to shine a spotlight on the incredible achievements of our alumni who have ventured far and wide, leaving enduring marks in their respective fields. But more than just success stories, Ranger Reels is a celebration of diversity, inclusivity, and the myriad of paths that lead to greatness. Each episode will offer a glimpse into the lives of our alumni, sharing their triumphs, their trials, and the invaluable lessons they've learned along the way. But perhaps what makes Ranger Reels truly special is its ability to foster a sense of community and belonging. Through the power of storytelling, we hope to bridge the gap between past and present, inspiring our students to dream big, chase their passions, and carve out their own unique legacies. So as we embark on this journey together, let us celebrate the extraordinary achievements of our alumni and let their stories serve as a beacon of hope and inspiration for generations to come. Welcome to Ranger Reels, where the extraordinary becomes the norm and where the spirit of our school community shines brighter than ever before.
Hi, welcome to the first episode of Ranger Reels, the alumni series, and I'm your host, Callie Farrell. I'm here with our first guest, Jacob Wess, a graduate from the class of 2019. I want to go straight into our first question. What do you remember being your favorite aspect of being a student at Hamilton Local School Districts?
I'd have to say that my favorite thing about Hamilton was definitely the people that I was able to meet by going here. I'm not going to say all of my teachers were my favorite people, but definitely some of my teachers were some of my favorite people I've met in life. And then, of course, all of my friends. I came to Hamilton in 6th grade, and right away I met a bunch of people that are still my friends to this day back then, and we stayed friends all the way through school, and then now are still friends now. But definitely my favorite thing about Hamilton, and definitely the biggest impact that Hamilton had on me was the people that I was able to meet, teachers and friends. Definitely.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think Hamilton has a very good, just people in general, doesn't matter the generation. I feel like we just have very good surroundings and especially teachers. But going back to the teacher thing, you said some weren't your favorite, but some were. Do you have one teacher that made a big impact on your life going into the outside world or just in school in general?
I wouldn't say that he had a big impact on me, going into the real world, at the end. But Mr. Farfsing, he was definitely someone that from the beginning, as soon as he heard about my business and I was in his business classes, he always just really stood behind me and supported my decisions, especially when it came to not going to college after high school, to pursue my business dreams. And that's why I had him give me my diploma too. But yeah, he was definitely, as far as I guess not really motivation, but just what's the word I'm looking for? I guess just a believer in someone that made me feel good about my decisions when I'm in his class learning about business and he's seeing, the actual numbers and stuff behind my business, and him just really supporting that and telling me to do what I want to do with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I can he definitely still talks about you. I had him last year and he was like, Jacob Wess sat in this very chair. So he still brings it up, and
He's a mess.
he's funny. But going back to just school in general, do you have any favorite memory or moment that you still cherish or think about just in at Hamilton in general?
Honestly, I don't think there's really one specific moment. I can say definitely playing soccer. There was a lot of good times with that. A lot of good times going to other sporting games to support, my friends, or sometimes I would go not even having friends on the team, just going. I just like watching sports. So I would say just really sports and going to the games, whether I was playing in them or just going to watch. Those are definitely my favorite moments from high school.
Yeah, totally. I agree. I love just going to football games or any sport events in
Football's
general.
my favorite.
Yeah.
I'm going to every Ohio State football game this year. I love going to football games.
But so we talked about your Hamilton and memories and stuff like that. But I do want to get into the business aspect because I know you started your own business and it did start from high school. So, like, when did you start that?
So it actually was in, not even, well, I guess, I don't know, sixth grade, if you consider that middle school or not. But sixth grade is when I got into shoes, and I didn't really turn it into like a business until probably, I don't know, sometime in middle school, like seventh or eighth grade. It really became like a thing. Like, okay, this is actually making me a decent amount of money for somebody that's only like 13, 14 years old.
Yeah.
But that was when I like got into shoes and really realized that I needed to turn this into more of a business to fund like being into shoes and collecting shoes, because I mean all the shoes that are big in the sneaker world
Hmm.
are expensive,
Yeah.
and a 13-year-old kid doesn't have money. And like, I just wanted to collect shoes. I wanted to have the best collection there was, and the only way to even try and start to do that was to turn it more into a business and then make the collecting like kind of a side hobby until I can afford to do it as
Yeah.
like a full-time thing. And so that was when I really got into it. And then in high school, I just continued to do it. And as I got older, once I got my license, stuff like that, it really helped propel the business, being able to go anywhere I needed to go to get a pair of shoes or sell a pair of shoes or whatever it may be.
Yeah. So it was definitely a long journey from middle school to high school. Now, once you graduated, was it hard to like actually start the business? Did it take a while?
So when it comes to SoleStop, and obviously that's the full time thing. That's like what's really taken off for me, and that's having two brick and mortar locations. That took a little bit of time after high school, just because when I graduated high school, I didn't even really know that I wanted to open a brick and mortar store. I was just doing everything online, selling shoes in other stores that are like what SoleStop is now. I was just selling my shoes in their stores,
Yeah.
and they would take a cut from it. And that's how I did things. And really, senior year is when I like decided that I was just going to devote any extra time that I had, because obviously with being a senior, you don't have nearly as many classes, and
Hmm.
you can come in late, leave early, stuff like that. So I really had a lot more time to focus on really running the business. And once I saw how much I was able to make doing it like that, that's when I really made the decision not to go to college. And so um, after I was done with high school and saw how much I made and saw that I really wanted to do it, I started trying to figure out how exactly I wanted to do it. If I wanted to just keep doing it the way I'd been doing it in high school, or if I wanted to, open a store, or maybe launch an online store where, I just built my own customer base through online, or how I wanted to do it. And I don't even really remember, to be honest with you, how it came about that me and my business partner were like going to open a store. I think it was really just like we were both doing the same thing, like selling our shoes in other people's stores, and they would just take a cut. And I think really the biggest thing is we just started like running numbers on, if they're selling this many pairs of our shoes, how many pairs of shoes are they selling total?
Yeah.
And because we were only a small percentage of their total inventory. And so we just kind of started running numbers and seeing that if the data is the way it should be, like the amount of shoes that they're selling, they're making this much money, and
Yeah.
like we could do this. And so then we started looking, and honestly for a while we didn't even know what the name of it was going to be, but our store was going to be in Dayton, Ohio. That's where my business partner's from, and that's where we were looking. Just because Columbus, like, we couldn't get into any of the malls, and we really wanted to open in a mall. And then there for a while, we kind of gave up on the mall thing, and we're just looking at standalone spots
Yeah.
in Dayton, and then even standalone spots in Columbus. But the biggest thing was that the standalone spots in Columbus were just crazy expensive, and we didn't know how big of a risk we were really taking, so we didn't want to commit to paying something crazy a month for years
Yeah.
and things not work out. So yeah, we went from looking at malls in other cities, mainly Dayton, to looking at standalones in Dayton and Columbus, to then finding that we could open in Tuttle and Columbus. And honestly, there was the biggest, I guess, like, we thought trying to figure out where we were going to open and all this and that was going to be our biggest roadblock per se, and biggest challenge. But really the biggest challenge came when we were about to sign our lease and COVID happened. That really threw a big wrench in things.
Yeah.
And honestly, we didn't know what to do. We didn't know what was going to happen. Like the mall didn't even shut down yet, but all this other stuff was shutting down. And we were literally like, we had the lease printed out and we're going to sign it and going to send it over, and other stuff started shutting down. And so then we just contacted them. We're like, hey, look, we still want to open, but the malls are probably going to be shut down in a few days. And who knows how long they're going to be shut down, because no one had ever seen anything like that. So no one had any idea, you know, how things were going to go, how long it was going to last, anything like that. So that's really how things went after high school and you know, opening SoleStop. But yeah.
So like that was a very it seemed like a very long process, and I don't know if I could ever do that. But do you have so if someone is interested in being an entrepreneur or starting their own business, is there any recommendations? You said you would just go into businesses and put your item out there, but do you have any other tips or recommendations to give someone if they want to do what you did?
Well, I mean, I guess not necessarily specifically to shoes, but just to start a business in general. I think the biggest thing is just making sure that you are in the right financial position, because at the end of the day, to open any business, it takes a good amount of money.
Yeah.
No matter what it is, you're going to need, you know, money to, and the thing is with it is there's a lot of different ways to start a business. You can start an online business out of your bedroom, and so with that you're not going to need nearly as much money. But if you're talking about opening, you know, an actual brick and mortar location business, whatever it may be, I think really the biggest thing and the biggest reason that a lot of people fail is that they just don't make sure that they're in the right financial and even mental position to be ready to take on what it could come with. And I was fortunate enough to have a business that took off right away. So I never, you know, had to deal with the losing money for 6 months straight before things turn around and start going well. So it's hard for me to really speak on that part of, you know, telling people if it starts out slow, stick with it. You know, I never had to experience that, and I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I still deal with a lot of headaches all the time. You know, things happen. An AC might break, and you know, now you're spending $6,000 on a new AC unit, or just things that people don't really think about. I mean, just the cost to keep a business open. You're paying rent, you're paying all these employees, you're paying utilities, you're paying for your price tags and just bags. That's one thing that I can really say that I never thought about that has really been a really big expense is when you're having to give out thousands of bags, you know, whether it be every couple weeks, every month, whatever, they're cheap per bag, but that adds up quick. I mean, when you're talking about spending, you know, $3,000-$4,000 at a time on shopping bags, it's that's just not something that you really think about, you know?
Yeah.
So my biggest piece of advice would definitely be just make sure that you're in the financial and mental position to be able to afford to do whatever you're trying to do, and also just make sure that you're mentally, you know, in the right state of mind to be ready to face whatever, you know, hardships that might come with the beginning of a business.
Yeah. So now you said you can't go off your personal experience because it's kind of always been up. So when you first started, did you just have straight business?
Yeah. So we were really like I said before, we were really nervous with COVID and stuff like that. And I didn't even touch on this earlier, but basically we just told them, you know, hey, we don't know how long this is going to last. We'll have to wait. And then I don't remember exactly how long it was shut down. I want to say maybe a month or so. But once things opened back up, we pretty much just reached back out and, you know, said, hey, we still want to do this. You know, but we're we feel like we're taking an even bigger risk. And it ended up working out because we ended up getting our first year of rent even cheaper than what we were paying before because of COVID and because of, you know, everywhere was just struggling in general in the beginning, because it's at a mall, which like in my specific situation at a mall, a lot of stores never reopened after the shutdown of COVID. So like these malls wanted to get as many people, as many businesses in there as possible. And so with that, they cut us a deal on the first year of rent, and that ended up just, obviously saving us money.
Yeah.
And so that worked out great. But I guess like the biggest thing, shoot, I forgot, I'm way off track. What was the question again?
Like, has business always been like successful? Like straight off the bat, was it just people running into the store?
Gotcha. Yeah. Trying to think how to pick up off of where I was. So yeah, we opened up, once things opened back up, we signed the lease and we got opened in June, and we thought that was taking an even bigger risk, but really it was the best thing that could have happened for us. COVID happening obviously was a terrible thing, but for our business wise, so many people were locked in their house. So many people were still getting paid through unemployment. And so when things opened back up, everyone had been locked in the house and had been spending money on basically nothing.
Yeah.
Because no businesses were open. And so people just started going out and spending money on everything, and like with no like consideration on the price tag, like anything. People were just buying stuff to buy it. And so that was what really helped us right out the gate. We sold like 40% of our inventory on our opening day. And so our biggest challenge in the beginning wasn't not having enough business. Our biggest challenge in the beginning was having enough inventory to supply the customers that were coming in. And like I said, there was people buying stuff just to buy it. If it was their size and they somewhat liked it, they would just buy it.
Yeah.
And so we just never expected something like that. So obviously there was, and another really big thing is we just didn't really expect to be that busy. And so we didn't have like a bunch of employees lined up or anything like that. We hadn't done interviews, anything. And we thought we weren't going to need full-time employees for at least a few months, but then we're getting done with our opening weekend and already needing multiple employees. And so really our biggest two challenges were just finding staff to start off, and and we had no time to do it. It wasn't like we could make a post and find, get applications and stuff like that. We had to do it within like a day or two. We had to find some people to work, at least for the time being. That was one of our biggest challenges. And then our other one was just keeping enough inventory for everyone.
Yeah, totally. So now, like, I always hear that like there's always so many posts of how like successful the business is because like everyone knows about SoleStop. Have you ever gotten to a point where you think there was a downfall, or like a point where you're like, oh, this isn't going well? Or do you think business has just always been strong since day one?
I mean, there's always ups and downs. Like there's always going to be your slower times of the year. Just like it's with any retail, like with shopping, like there's just slower times of the year. You've always got a slow season right after back to school before Christmas. And you've always got a slow time right after Christmas because people are just spending. And then they're not. So that's always a slower time of the year. The biggest thing is really just not letting sales cut in half or sometimes even more, not letting that like discourage and like bring us down even more, like we're already down from sales being down. Like we're not going to let that tear us down even more. And really just knowing that that's what comes with being in retail. There's times of the year when a lot of people are shopping and there's times of the year when they're not. And so that I would say that's really the biggest thing with, when it comes to ups and downs is just those slower times of the year, but the good times of the year make up for it. So.
Yeah. Now, I think you mentioned earlier you do share it with someone else, like it's a partnership. Was that always like, were you guys always working together from day one, or was it kind of you and then he kind of came into the picture?
Yeah, so until SoleStop was a thing, we had never been business partners or anything. We actually just met through doing the same thing, kind of just, selling shoes on our own. We'd both been doing it for a long time. He's a couple years older than me, so like we both got into it at the same time, like time frame, but he was a little bit older when he got into it just because he's a little bit older than me. I'm not exactly sure when exactly we met, but it was probably within the first couple years that I was into shoes. And for a long time, we were just friends. We would always see each other at like trade shows and stuff like that. And I think really the biggest thing is we just like, we both kind of had the same like mindset on how we wanted to do things and wanted to really take our businesses to the next level.
Yeah.
But we had to figure out how to do that.
Yeah. Okay, so one thing I think that is really important people don't think of is being a business owner. How do you like balance your outside life with owning a store?
For sure. So I'll be honest, in the beginning it was really hard. There was, like I said, when there was times we had no staff. Well, not no staff, but we were kind of just throwing a staff together for every day in the beginning. And so when that was happening, there was nights we were there till 2 a.m. There was mornings after being there since 2 a.m. that we were back there at 9 a.m., 8 a.m. For a long time, there really honestly wasn't much of a personal and business life balance.
Yeah.
And that, honestly, I never really thought about saying that earlier, but that was like one of the biggest like downs of SoleStop, to be honest with you. There was definitely a point where I was like, is this going to be like this like forever? Because if it is, then I'm probably not going to do this for very long.
Yeah.
Just because there was really no personal life.
Yeah.
But now we have staff members that have been with us for years. We have people that are able to do everything that we were the only ones that could do as owners in the beginning.
Yeah.
It's a lot different with our business than most because we buy shoes in store. So like we have to have someone, and we buy shoes all day, every day. Like anytime we're open, we're buying. And so like with that, there has to always be someone there who is able to, know what to pay, know how to authenticate the shoe.
Yep.
Know if we would buy it based on how many we already have, stuff like that. So that's like one of the big things. And that's honestly, that's really one of the biggest reasons why we were there all day, every day, because there had to be someone there that can do that. And we had no one other than us that could do that. So that is definitely like what made the balance of personal and business life so hard in the beginning. But now, like I said, we have so many people that can do pretty much everything that we could do as owners in the beginning that I'm able to really do, don't get me wrong, I'm still busy a lot with like business stuff, but not necessarily having to be at the store. And that's like a really big thing because there's a lot of stuff that I can just do from my computer, so I can do it from pretty much anywhere.
Yeah.
And that really has helped make my balance of personal and business life, I would say, in my opinion, it's about as good as it can get. Like I said, with the type of business that we're in, it's really different because it's not like I'm still going to be the one buying shoes. I still source a lot of our inventory, from like out of state and just from people that I've met over the years and stuff like that, because at the end of the day, we can only buy so many of specific shoes from people just bringing them in. We can make a post on our social medias and say, hey, we're looking to buy this shoe, if you have them, please bring them in, or please call and get a quote. But at the end of the day, there's only so many pairs of that shoe in Columbus that people are going to bring in. So now I definitely have a really good balance of personal and business life, but there was definitely a time where it was really rough. And like I said, there was times where I'm like, if this is going to be like this forever, I'm not going to do this for very long.
Yeah. Now moving into how like at the beginning you weren't sure if it's going to be forever, do you see like SoleStop you're going to do it for your whole life, or do you see something different in your future?
It's really a hard question to answer now. I think the fact that I started like reselling shoes in general over 10 years ago, which is crazy to even think about it being that long already, that like really plays a big factor into making me feel like it's probably not going to be like a forever thing. But at the same time, I don't really know. I mean, I can say 8 years ago, if you told me that 8 years from now, you're still going to be doing this and you're going to have actual stores, and like, that's going to be what you do for a living, I don't really think I would have believed that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's really hard for me to say, whether I think it is something I'll do forever. I would say there's a better chance that it's not, just because I say it all the time to people. I don't know how people do the same thing for 25, 30 years of their life.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just feel like it just gets too repetitive. Now, the one thing I will say is, like, with owning the shoe store and having a good balance of personal and business life, like we were just talking about,
Yeah.
that has really made it to where I don't feel like I'm doing the same thing over and over and over every single day.
Yeah.
And with that, I'm able to, I feel like that helps me feel like I can do it for a lot longer. Whereas when we first opened, like I was saying before,
Yeah.
I'm doing the same thing from morning to night every single day. I'm just at the store doing the same thing over and over. And so, like, at that point in time, my answer definitely would have been no. Like, there's no way that I'll do this until I'm, retired and doing nothing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Now, this is kind of off the topic, but I think everyone wants to know, what is your favorite shoe and why?
So I have a couple, to be honest. One of them is definitely going to be the Oreo Jordan 5. And that's just because that was the shoe that, like, started this whole thing.
Yeah.
I just saw them and had really taken an interest into, like, the whole shoes and, like, the whole sneakerhead thing. And so I saw those, and my birthday was coming up, and they were releasing on Black Friday. And I just asked my mom, I'm like, hey, like, can I just get my birthday present early, and can I go get these shoes?
Yeah.
But the thing was, I didn't really know how to make sure that I could get the shoes, because back then, I mean, pretty much any Jordan that came out that was, somewhat sought after would sell out on release day.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't really into this stuff, so I didn't know how to do it. Like, I didn't know how to make sure I got them. And I just ended up asking some people that I knew that were into shoes, hey, how can I make sure I get a pair of these? And I ended up going to Eastland Mall, which isn't even a thing anymore.
Yeah.
But I went there and went to Champs and stood in line for, I don't know, it was probably like a couple hours, and got my size, got my pair. And so that's definitely one of them. The other one is really, there's not really like a specific reason other than it's like everyone's holy grail in shoes. It's the Nike Air Mag.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people know what that is from the movie Back to the Future, because it's what Marty McFly puts on.
Yeah.
But that shoe is just like, number one, it's one of the most expensive shoes there are. But number two, it's just became such a staple of the shoe industry, just because, one, they're very limited, but two, like, it's the first shoe of its kind where it lights up. It's very, very different looking. It doesn't look like any Jordan or, any other shoe that you really see. It's very unique, and most people call them ugly, especially for the price that they go for. But every sneakerhead knows what that shoe is, and I'm very, very thankful to be able to have a pair in my personal collection, and then we also have a pair at our store that we have on display that brings in a lot of people.
Yeah. Now, would you say that pair is your holy grail? Like, that is the one shoe you'll never get rid of?
I would say, I don't know. That's really hard. At the end of the day, like, I'm a business person, so like, if someone offers the right price for something, like, there's very few, especially shoes, there's very few shoes that I'm not going to sell if someone offers the right price. But I definitely don't plan on selling it, I guess I should say. It's definitely one that I really just want to have in my collection, just to have, because at the end of the day, like, they're only getting harder to get.
Yeah.
And even if they do, like, release pairs of them again, which they did, they actually made a second version of them in 2016. But even if they did that, the value of the original ones are not going to really be affected by that. And so I would rather have one now at the price that I can pay now than have to spend a lot more on a pair in the future to have it in my collection. But it's definitely one that I don't plan on selling or think I'll ever, like, list for sale to try and sell. But if someone was to ever offer the right amount of money, I probably wouldn't say no.
Yeah, for sure. I get that. And then kind of moving back into the Hamilton aspect, what is, like, one of your favorite things of being a part of, like, the Hamilton Township community?
Honestly, what we touched on earlier with my favorite thing about going to school at Hamilton is just the people. There's just a lot of really good people in the community. I feel like for the most part, everyone knows each other,
Yeah.
and for the most part, everyone is friends with each other. And so, I don't know. I just feel like most places that you go nowadays, they've gotten so big and so, just overpopulated that that's not really a thing. And that's definitely one of the things that I really like about the Hamilton community is that even though, of course, it's grown, it's gotten bigger. Obetz is
Yeah.
considered a city now.
Yeah.
People, 20 years ago would have never even believed that probably.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think just the community as a whole, just everyone knowing each other and everyone, being nice to each other and being more of like a family than just people that live around each other.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. Just like my personal experience as well. Because I've grown up here like from pre-K to now.
Yeah.
I just think the community has always been super welcoming. And I don't have anything really bad to say about it. I think it's just, like you said, it's just great people to be around, and there's nothing really negative you can really say about Hamilton. And then kind of ending us off, I want to ask you one final personal question. What is one thing or one piece of advice you could give to any high school student?
I would say, I don't know. That's really hard just because like every person is different. Some people school comes naturally for them.
Yeah.
Some people can study all day, all night and, go to tutoring and stuff. And it's just still, a challenge for them.
Yeah.
I think really the biggest thing or really the biggest like piece of advice that I could give people is just don't let like someone who school does come natural, don't let them just, breezing by and getting good grades. Don't let that discourage you. Especially at Hamilton, if you need help, ask for it.
Yeah.
People will make sure that you get the help you need. But just really like, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess really just stay persistent and stay, with a positive outlook on how things are going to go for you, because I feel like the biggest thing that happens with high school students, especially when you get like closer to being like a senior and being, to graduation and really seeing where you're at with being able to graduate, like people just really get down on themselves. And I just feel like, you need to, don't be afraid to ask for help, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for that piece of advice, and thank you everyone for watching our first ever Ranger Reels podcast from the Alumni series, and thank you so much Jacob Wess from the graduating class 2019 to join us.